We forget that things were not always the same way they are now. Wherever we are now, whatever we have, sometimes seems like that's all there is. But everything began somewhere. Our world has become a cacophony of noise and confusion. It is easy to forget from where we came. My name is Manuel C. Cruz, professor of theater arts. I have personally seen higher education devalue the arts, moving to professional business and technical education. Now, there's nothing wrong with these pathways, but we forget the value of the arts in our lives. Theater is important to our social and emotional learning. Theater can help people develop empathy, respect for others, and the ability to communicate effectively. It can also help people learn to behave in social situations. Theater helps build community. Theater brings people together in a shared space to experience something moving, funny, or thought-provoking. Theater is important to our sense of history. Theater can help people connect with history by making it come alive on stage. Theater can help with our creativity. It helps people tap into their own personal creativity, no matter what your profession is, and helps us understand the world. Theater can help people explore the world from different perspectives and understand people from other cultures. It can also help our academic achievement. Studies have suggested that students who are exposed to theater, music, and dance are more proficient in reading, writing, and math. Today we're going to talk about the actor. Now, the actor may be the most visible part of theater, but definitely not the most important part of theater, although some of us actors do think we are that important. Now, acting in definition means to take action or to do something, or to behave in a specified way, to take effect, have a particular effect, or perform a fictional role in a play, movie, or television show. Sanford Meisner defined acting as to do truthfully in an imaginary circumstance. His teachings emphasized emotional accessibility and intuitive responses. Now, in my book, Via Actorum, The Way the Actor, I described acting as a very simple idea with a difficult execution. Now, there are some reasons why a simple task might be difficult to execute. One is underestimating the time and effort. People tend to be optimistic and believe they can complete tasks quickly, but unforeseen obstacles can arise. Another reason would be workload paralysis. People feel overwhelmed by the amount of work they have to do, which can make even small tasks seem difficult. And believe me, acting is very complex and difficult. It's supposed to be. Talent is not enough. And the last reason would be perfectionism. People want to be perfect in our society. They can make it difficult to get started on or complete tasks, feeling that they are not perfect. At the heart of the theater experience is the exchange between the actor and the audience. The performance of the artist, the actor, is both verbal and nonverbal. And the nonverbals are the most important part and the most difficult for the actor to master. Which is why I say acting is a very simple task with a difficult execution. The actor must be totally truthful for the audience to reach catharsis, which Aristotle used to describe purgation or purification. It was the emotional effect of a tragedy on its audience. In his Poetics, Aristotle wrote that the purpose of tragedy is to evoke pity and fear and thereby effect catharsis upon the audience. Now, the concept of catharsis is linked to the idea that tragedy has a positive social function. Some interpretations of catharsis include emotional release. Tragedy arouses deep emotions, but then provides a release so that the audience doesn't experience the trauma. Directed emotions. The audience anxieties are directed outward through vicarious fear and their insight and outlook are enlarged. Emotional purification. The audience's emotions are purified of excess and defect and trained to be directed towards the right objects at the right time. Now understand that when Aristotle talked about catharsis, he was using his point of view, his lens on his society. And so scholars would debate some of the points that I just mentioned. Now, the actor should only be aware of the audience in non-scripted theater, stand-up, improv, sketch comedy, these sort of things. In scripted theater, the actor creates his own cosmos, his own cosmology. The actor doesn't live in the same world that the audience lives in, and so the well-trained actor understands this. Now, in previous episodes, I've mentioned that theater is everywhere. That includes acting, and it starts off when we're children. Children use imitation in play. They experience the world through their play and they mimic what they see. So adults, remember, little pitchers have big ears. Now, as teens and adults, acting is used in role playing. Now, role playing is used either for cruelty, to make fun of somebody, or used in humor, to be humorous. Now remember, humor is based on the Schadenfreude. Humor is at the expense of others. So when you speak without thinking and then say, "I'm joking," are you being truthful? Think about it. Now, outside of imitation, acting in everyday life creates persona. And persona is used in social roles and in personal roles. Now, in social roles, we're talking about vocation, educator, law enforcement, first responder, that sort of thing. The persona that goes with these vocations elicits an outward image that people recognize and can associate with these particular vocations. Social roles can also be used to identify gender, male, female, non-binary. However the person identifies is the persona that is cultivated in order to identify themselves. Lastly, social roles identify class or station. Upper class, middle class, or bourgeoisie, lower class. However the person identifies themselves is the persona that they either cultivate or is thrust upon them. Now, personal roles are developed within the family and within friendships, such as braggart. Are you loud? Do you play yourself up? Are you shy? Are you quiet, reserved? Take in the world. Are you interrogative? Do you question the world? Are you curious about what goes on and why it goes on? Now, for all these roles, imitation, personal roles, social roles, all the circumstances in these conditions are real. What's happening is actually happening, whether or not it is witnessed by an audience. Acting for the theater, mediated or non-mediated, is different. The actors are constantly being observed by the audience. In life, you may or may not have an audience, but in theater, you definitely have an audience, because theater art is for the benefit of the witness, the audience. Now, unlike life's genuine circumstances, the circumstances for acting for the theater are imaginary. They are the product of the creator, the writer's dramatic script. It has all the tension, all the conflict that you may or may not find in genuine circumstances in life. Also, in the theater, actors may play multiple characters in which they have to cultivate multiple personas, personalities to portray in the dramatic script. In life, you are just portraying one character, yourself. Now, roles on stage are often similar to roles people are called on to play in real life. In real life, there are certain circumstances that have to be addressed, objectives that we want to achieve that are often fraught with obstacles. Also, these obstacles could be the relationships you have with the individuals that you are dealing with, and emotions to navigate through this relationship. And of course, there's always stakes consequences to all the choices that we make. Now, what I have just described is what I call course work. This is the homework that every actor has to do before they even start to memorize the script that they're given. CORES is the acronym CORES. Circumstance, objective and the obstacles, relationships, emotions, and stakes. And stakes, when you are playing roles on stage, have to be very high. Now, there are 3 challenges for the actors, no matter which acting theory you subscribe to. One is making the characters believable. That means that actors portray people. We don't do characters. Characters are something that is very two-dimensional. It has no depth, and they are not very believable. Which is why the actor has to do that deep dive, has to do their dramaturgy research. They have to do the course work for every scene that they are in a play or a movie or television show. Now, a lot of young, inexperienced actors skip this part, and that is why their work is not very deep. So it's necessary to do all this intellectual work before you start memorizing any lines. It gives you depth, it gives you understanding, and gives you a more believable performance. Now, this is all intellectual, as I said before. Let's talk about the physical work. The physical acting, using the voice and the body, all the actions must be organic. They can't be contrived. They have to have some purpose or meaning behind them, otherwise they mean nothing. Now, once you've developed the intellectual and the physical performance, it's time to integrate the two together, to synergize, to use a buzzword from the 80s, to make this a whole organic person, intellectually and physically. And that is how you begin to master acting. Now let's talk about methods, plural, of making characters believable. It actually started in the 19th century with a French music teacher named François Delsarte. He is known for methods by which performers were taught to develop expressiveness of their bodies and laid stress on a connection between the mental attitude and physical posture and discovering one's emotional state communicated through one's physical being. Now, while he never codified his theory, wrote it down, his protégés would later come up with a syllabus of poses that would express an outward-inward acting style, a technique that would be adopted and mastered by the queen of the pose, Sarah Bernhardt. Now, while this technique has not been taught for over 150 years, it would seem that inexperienced actors somehow revert to this style simply because they've seen it in old films and because it's just a natural way of expressing themselves when they have not yet developed their skills. Now, Sarah Bernhardt had a contemporary by the name of Eleonora Duse. Eleonora Duse was a very different actor during that era. Her artistic achievements were the result of her intellectual and spiritual struggles, rather than simply being inspired by the movement of the moment. Now, like François Delsarte, she did not write her method down. It would later be codified by Konstantin Stanislavski of the Moscow Arts Theater. Now, the Stanislavski method was promoted as the new Russian drama of his day. It was part of the naturalistic acting movement of the early 20th century and is the basis of all modern acting theories to this day. It is one of the most frequently taught acting techniques, utilizing relaxation, concentration, and observation Stanislavski's psychophysical action was purposeful action undertaken to fulfill a character's goal. It was considered the most direct route to the emotions. Now, while it was initiated by Stanislavski, it was furthered by Michael Chekhov in a technique which draws on physical action and mind-body connection to create a central approach to the character. Now, Stanislavski would later clarify that action is motivated by emotion. By the mid-20th century, an actor and founder of the Actor Studio in New York, Lee Strasberg, came up with a method that is often thought of when referring to method acting. His emphasis was on a technique called emotional recall, and is a tool intended for performers to achieve a sense of emotional truth by recalling emotions felt in previous experiences and recalled on stage. Now, later acting theories would call for an emphasis on inner resources with the inclusion of given circumstances and purposeful action. Adler would emphasize imagination over total emotional recall, meaning that you didn't have to recall an experience from the past, but rather use your imagination to come up with a reaction to the given circumstance. Meisner advocated the repetition exercise for truthful responses in imaginary circumstances by forcing the actor to actually listen to the other person, create an opinion, and respond intuitively. Uta Hagen's respect for acting had an emphasis on emotional recall and memory, a form of realism the actor puts his own psyche to use in finding identification with the role, trusting that a form will result. Broadway playwright David Mamet and actor William H. Macy came up with a theory called practical aesthetics, which combines the Stanislavski method and the Meisner technique. This is an emphasis on analyzing the scene to discover what is literally happening and what the character wants from the others in the scene. This is an analytical approach with emphasis on the simple pursuit of an action above all else. Actors' attention goes to text analysis, script work, and literal understanding of a scene's driving event. Viola Spolin is another theorist. This has an emphasis in theater games. This approach inspires students to respond immediately and live in the moment. Her technique focuses on self-direction and improvisation, and she's considered a driving force of improv as we know it in the United States. The last theory I want to talk about is my own, Via Actorum, the way of the actor. This is a theory that I developed in graduate school. It is based on my graduate thesis and emphasizes the actor's quartet. It is a holistic approach to acting in the 21st century. A Zen approach to acting with alchemy elements, which correspond to each element of the quartet, which are intellect, body, voice, creative soul. These elements have to be trained, developed, and work in harmony with each other. They have to all work together. Much like the yin and yang, they are opposing elements working in balance. This technique requires the actor to have an intellectual basis for their performance before they even start to memorize any lines, making the actor a creative artist and a collaborator with the director. In fact, part of this technique was inspired by a colleague and friend, director Lisa Devine. This technique requires the actor to do their homework. For each and every scene that they're in the play or a movie or television show, they have to read the script multiple times. Sir Anthony Hopkins is notorious for reading his script 200 times. The actor must also do their coursework, circumstance, objective, the obstacles to that objective, relationship, emotional prep, and stakes. This is all required as part of their dramaturgy, their research. Now that we've talked about the different methods of training, we're going to talk about something that you may or may not have heard. When an actor says, "I am classically trained," what does the classically trained actor mean? Well, simply put, classically trained means to have learned the traditional methods and skills of any subject, such as art, music, or ballet. It can also refer to something that is based on or reminiscent of ancient Greece or Rome. A classically trained actor has developed their movement, voice, and script analysis. They may have taken classes at an acting school or enrolled in a multi-year program, a college or university. That's pretty much it. It just means that the actor has been formally training in voice, in movement, in dramaturgy, which means history, script analysis, intellectual approaches to acting, and in the different styles of acting. In 21st century Western theater, we try to be as honest and authentic as possible when we perform as actors, which means that when we revive older plays, especially ancient Greece or Rome, we adopt the style of acting of the period. Acting in the 21st century is very different than it was, say, in the 19th century, in the 1800s, or the early 20th century, where it was very, shall we say, flamboyant, very big, very broad. We don't do that anymore. But if we're going to revive an old play, the choice may be to revive the style as well, which is not limited to movement or, presentation, but it can also mean language. Language was often poetry and requires intense training, especially for Shakespeare, which is in the iambic pentameter, or Molière, which is in the iambic hexameter, both of which require just a little bit of musical training because these languages are about rhythm and national culture. The actor must also train for different theater spaces because every space is a little bit different. There are differences in acoustics and size, so the actor has to learn how to project in larger theater spaces. Likewise, if the actor has to adjust to mediated theater, then the actor must learn how to be more intimate. Being in film or television doesn't mean to make your performance smaller, it means to make it more intimate. There's a difference. Actors today must have both classical, physical, and vocal skills and psychological and emotional tools, but must be ready to adjust to a different style that may be more exaggerated or stylized. The actor must train voice and body, learning to articulate and to project, achieving a balance between being heard and being credible. The actor has to train both body and voice. Another important thing is to develop a sense of center. Most inexperienced actors think that they always have to be doing something or saying something. It is just as important to develop a sense of stillness. Sometimes stillness can speak volumes as well. When it comes to physical training, there are many different schools of thought. One of them is biomechanics by Vsevolov-Marhold. Now, this is a system of acting that relied on motion rather than language or illusion. A contemporary of Stanislavski, he believed that Stanislavski overemphasized the spirit and psychoanalysis. Biomechanics emphasized elementary laws of reflexes. His three key principles of acting were efficiency, never wasted energy on stage, rhythm, and rhythm is the glue that held everything together. He used a tripartite rhythm made up of three parts: odkaz, preparation; podsi, action; and tochka, endpoint. And finally, expressiveness. Expressiveness is the means by which the actor communicates with the audience. And then there was Jacques Capot, who was a French actor, literary critic, stage director, and dramatic coach who led a reaction against realism in the early 20th century. Capot founded École Ville-Colombière in Paris in 1913 to help students unlearn the techniques of commercial theater. He introduced the use of masks in modern Western theater in 1913. His mask training involved using neutral masks, masks from other cultures, and hoods and fabrics to remove the face. Mask work helps actors explore personas and enhance character work without relying on dialogue. Then there are Asian influences like the Dashi Suzuki's techniques for actor training, known as the Suzuki method, which focuses on the actor's whole body, particularly the lower body and the feet. The method aims to help actors develop their physical and emotional power and to express themselves through their bodies. Some of the techniques used in Suzuki's method include breathing, footwork, squatting, walking, concentration. These are methods that were traditionally used in No and Kabuki theater. Then there's my personal favorite, Tai Chi. Tai Chi can be beneficial for the actor in several ways, including body awareness. Tai Chi can help actors become more aware of their bodies and how they move through space. This awareness can be used to create a character's physical life. Then there's focus and discipline, relaxation, and strength and flexibility. The current trend in theater is musical theater. Just about every young actor wants to be in a musical. What they need to understand is that musical theater training is a very specialized kind of training. It requires the actor to study more than one discipline. Acting is the most important one. But you also have to study dance. Now, a lot of these musical theater actors have been studying dance since they were 5 years old. They also begin their musical training mid-adolescent, about the time that their voice kind of stabilizes, and they study constantly into adulthood. The successful musical artist trains for many, many years. This isn't something you can just pick up and be very successful as an adult or even as an adolescent. But if you do, understand that you're going to have to train very, very hard to catch up to the others. I'm not saying that you won't be successful, I'm just saying that it's more challenging that way. Now, these are just a few examples of the types of training that are available to the actor. There are many, many more out there. You just have to find them depending on what job you take. I mean, if you're going to do avant-garde theater, then you may want to take some sort of specialty avant-garde movement and training and that sort of thing. Just know that if you're going to want to be an actor, you will be training for the rest of your life. It never ends. The master actor recognizes that there is always something new to learn. Constant training and practice brings you closer to near perfection, because perfection is unattainable. Now, for those who don't want to be an actor as a profession, then studying what it takes to be an actor, how difficult it is, the training that's involved, the challenges that go with it, help you to understand how to judge a performance when you see it. You can tell whether or not the actor that you are witnessing has mastered all of the techniques necessary to be an actor. Movement, projection, how they respond to the other performers. Are they listening? Are they responding truthfully? Are they responding intuitively? You begin to understand how to make an educated judgment of an actor's performance. I'm Manuel C. Cruz. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell for future episodes. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Patreon page by clicking the link below.